The United Kwacha Alliance is one of the opposition political party alliances with the objective of forming government in 2026. It's got a council of presidents, and as a result, no one has been chosen to be the foreman of the 2026 election and fronted as their candidate. This is seemingly creating a crumbling of the cookie in the United Kwacha Alliance. Some members have resigned, while others are reported to have been expelled. One of those that is said to have been expelled is Green Party President Peter Sinkamba. I sat down with him on this edition of This Day, and he was telling me what's going on and what he feels is wrong with the United Kwacha Alliance. Welcome to This Day. My name is Dingindaba Jonah Buyoya. Mr. Sinkamba, thank you so much for joining me on this edition of This Day. You've been reported to have been expelled from the United Kwacha Alliance. You have written an article in response to what's going on there. And I'm just curious to ask, what is going on with the United Kwacha Alliance and why have you allegedly been expelled?
Well, we also got that message with shock. To say that we have been expelled as a Green Party and myself as a president from UKA, because in the first instance, we have never been members of UKA. What transpired was that in April this year, I received a call from the President Shalakateka inviting us to join UKA. I requested for documentation to do with UKA, which she sent to us. In the conversation we had with them via virtual means, I raised a couple of questions which they failed to give me concrete answers. One, I said we were very uncomfortable that UKA was not registered and they were having problems with registration, thereby making it as an illegal organization. So I requested them to explain when they thought that UKA was going to be registered. And in that arrangement, I also asked them if they had plan B in the event that the registration for UKA did not materialize. I offered to them an alternative. I said, if they had challenges to do with the registration of UKA, there was the People's Pact, which was already a registered organization. I asked them if they could consider using the People's Pact as an alternative. They didn't give me concrete answers, and it ended there. But there was a second question which I asked them. Suppose UKA is not registered and you have to go to the polls, how would you handle the issue of adoption of candidates? Then they said, no, we can identify a political party which we could use as a vehicle. Then I said, aren't you going to end up in the same situation like UPND Alliance, where in the UPND Alliance, there were 14 or 15 political parties, but when time came for adoption, UPND used that as a platform to adopt only its political or its party members. At the end of the day, almost all political parties under that alliance, none of them has a seat in parliament, none of them has a council office. So aren't you going to end up with that same situation? So they couldn't give me concrete answers, and therefore the forms which they had sent us for us to register as the members of UKA were never filled up and were never submitted. And they started running, and we had nothing to do with UKA ourselves as a Green Party. Then in July, I was invited by President Edgar Lungu through the former secretary to UKA, Lucky Musa, who came to say, no, the president wants you to attend an UKA rally in Kitwe. I went there. Even the introduction was not made that the the Green Party was a member of UCA. It was very explicit that we had nothing to do with UCA, but we attended by invitation that particular rally. Then later on, again, I received an invitation from President Edgar Lungu through President Dan Pule for us to join the UCA, what they call the Council of Presidents. And I traveled in August for a meeting. I think it was on 22nd of August or so, for a meeting of what they call the Council of Presidents. When I went into that meeting, before the meeting started, I was asked a question by President Slabwe. What he said, what is President Sinkamba doing here? So I said, well, I thought I was invited for this meeting by President Edgar Lungu. Said, no, you are not a member of UCA. So then they started arguing amongst themselves, became acrimonious. I was told, no, go out, let's resolve this. And at some point, because they couldn't resolve it, at some point I invited President Edgar Lungu to come out of the meeting. And I told him, I'm leaving, I can't be part of this kind of confusion. Also, Madam Tshalakatega came and said, well, we had issues. I said, look, and the issues are to do with your position on the illegality of UCA. And I said, look, I am going, and I don't think I'll be part of this kind of confusion. But if this is the way you are running UCA, this organization is not going anywhere, because it will take just one press conference, and the whole thing is going to be in disarray. So then she asked me, are you going to have a press briefing about this? I said, well, I'll think about it. But me, I'm going, and we are relaunching our People's Pact because we don't think that there's any credibility in continuing with this particular situation. I don't think I can join this kind of grouping. And that's how I left. And that's how I left. The next thing was for us to come and launch the People's Pact, which was done 2 weeks ago in Lusaka. So to come and hear that you have expelled Mr. Sinkamba, I've never attended any meeting of UCA where we don't have any documentation to confirm that we as UCA have applied for membership. The only letter which is there is to accept the invitation by President Edgar Lungu to attend that meeting. That's all. So really, when they were making those announcements, I knew that it was just sour grapes, because we had launched the People's Pact just a couple of weeks ago, and we are the people of Zambia are comfortable that we have a direction. Our direction is to ensure that President Edgar Lungu becomes president in 2026, and we have started the campaigns. You know, with a rally set from Freya as a People's Pact. So really, to say we have expelled, expelling who? Because we've never been part of UCA. And as I'm telling you, we were invited to attend a meeting where, again, they had confusion themselves. They couldn't agree. And we walked away from that meeting and said we will not be part of that kind of confusion. So really, what is happening in UCA, after what our position, which I told Madam Kateka that this UCA is not going anywhere, it will crumble after one meeting. And I had that meeting, and here it is. It has crumbled. Parties are resigning from there. A number of them have resigned to join us in the People's Pact. The Secretary General has gone, and I'm pretty sure it will not last as a credible alliance that can push an election into victory.
Who has resigned to join you?
We have the new Era Democratic Party. They resigned to join us. We have the United for Better Zambia political party. They've resigned to join us. We had indications from other political parties who had indicated they would come, but I've not mentioned their names until we have something in writing. Then we can make those announcements. But there were about 4 or 5 political parties from who were with UCA who have indicated they're coming along, and we will invite them.
Well, I highly doubt that any of those political parties will be missed, because none of the major political parties have joined you in this People's Pact.
Well, you see, when you say major political party, the only major political party in this country is the PF in opposition, because that's the only one which has seats in parliament. That's the only one which has various portfolios within the local government arrangement. So if you say major, which one? None of those that are in UCA besides the PF are called major political parties, because none of them has any representation in parliament. None of them has any representation in any council. None of them has any chairpersons or mayors of that measure I'm talking about. All of them are the same.
Isn't that quite telling then about the United Kwacha Alliance, that it is a bunch of non-major political parties coming together for God knows what? The same about your new alliance.
Well, the People's Pact has a different background. If you recall, the People's Pact was born in 2011. And when it was born in 2011, when we registered it, there was confusion in PF. There was confusion in UPN. The UPND PF Pact had collapsed. So the People's Pact was trying to bring together PF and UPND to get back after the collapse of the pact. When it became very difficult for us to bring together the two, we met with the late President Michael Sata and agreed that we work with the PF. At that time, no structure of PF was existing, because Mr. Sata dissolved the district committees, the constituency committees, the provincial committees, and national committees, because that's the time he had rebels. Rebels MPs, I think 22 MPs were rebels, councillors were rebels, mayors were rebels. So he was literally alone. And the People's Pact decided to fill in that gap without any party structures of PF being involved. And we ran the campaign for Mr. Sata until he won that election in 2011. We had all the rallies that were being organized for PF, for Mr. Sata, were organized by the People's Pact. And it's the only pact besides the UPND pact which has won elections, which has run a campaign and won elections. So we are different from UCA. UCA has done nothing, because we haven't even organized any ward election which they have won. They've not organized any parliamentary election which they've won. But the People's Pact won the 2011 election, which launched President Michael Sata into office. And if you look back, go read the inaugural speech. He indicated that if it wasn't for the People's Pact, he wouldn't have won that election. So we are different. We are different from these others or we are different from UCA, because UCA has done literally nothing. I guess you understand, because there must be a measure of what you have done, which is going to be the benchmark for you to say either you can win an election or not. So for us, since we have the experience of having won the election in 2011 as the People's Pact, we have no problem at all. We think that even the 2026 election, we can win it. And in fact, the 2011 election, we ran it in 10 months. This time around, we have at least almost 20 months to go, which gives us a lot of time to mobilize and win the election. And that's why for us, I think even President Edgar Lungu is comfortable with us, because we have a background. We worked together before, and we can work together now and win an election, because we have that background of having won something besides what others are doing. Others are just talking. They've never been involved in an election at alliance level and win an election.
You claim, as part of an article that you wrote about the United Kwacha Alliance recently, that the UPND is behind the confusion in UKA. Why did you make such a wild accusation? Because UPND is not even a part of UKA.
Well, it's not part of UKA, of course. We are not part of UKA, yes. But you see, the little time that I tried to engage the UPN, I mean, this UKA Alliance, and especially the meeting which I was supposed to have attended, whilst we were still in the conversation, whilst there was that acrimony happening, information was already filtering on the causeway. This UPND media arrangements on the confusion which was happening, the acrimony which was happening in that meeting concerning my attendance. So that itself was empirical evidence that there were already mores within the alliance that were aligned to that. And even their statements that were making concerning ECL in the public domain, whether ECL was going to contest, it was very clear from all those statements that they were aligned to UPND position. So for us, when we looked at that, it clearly could see that there are some surrogates of UPND within this UKA alliance, whose agenda is to push the UPND agenda of not having ECO to contest the election in 2026, or it has been infiltrated or hijacked by individuals who are championing the UPND agenda of stopping ECO from contesting the election. So what I'm saying is empirical evidence, which is pointing to that particular direction. And as you've seen, those that have been hounded out, for example, President Sean Tembo and President Apostle Pule, their sin which they have committed, according to the UKA Council of Presidents, is that they are supporting ECL for president. That's the only problem they've made. Or everything else is just an alibi. Otherwise, the agenda they are pushing is a UPND agenda. I mean, if they think that is the contrary, let them give us a reason why up to now they have refused or they have blocked the adoption of ECL as presidential candidate on UKA ticket. Because if that was done in April or thereabout, there wouldn't have been this confusion in UKA up to now. But they are adamant about stopping him, just like the way you heard from the Secretary General's resignation letter. And that itself is what has destroyed UKA, because then it is pointless to belong to an alliance without any political direction. There's no leader. You cannot be campaigning for no one, as it is, because if there's no leader, then who are you campaigning for? And that's what makes the whole UKA ensemble as a joke, because you have no leader to campaign for. You have no flag carrier or flag bearer. Who are you campaigning for? So for 9 months or 10 months that UKA has been there, because of that failure to have a leader who are going to present to the Zambian people, everyone has now lost confidence in them. And that's why people are drifting away. They're looking for better leadership elsewhere, because people want to know when the elections are going to be held. And they also want to know who will be our presidential candidate. And they want to know how do they sell this individual. Now, if you cannot present it to them, then you are wasting people's time.
Now, there's a lot to unpack from what you've said, but let's start from here. Isn't it obviously in the best interest of the UPND to share information about confusion that is happening amongst their opponents? Why would this be surprising for an experienced politician like yourself, that there is confusion in the United Kwacha Alliance and the UPND shares this confusion? Because obviously, if there's confusion in the United Kwacha Alliance, it makes their political party stronger. Is this really enough ground for you to claim that they are behind this confusion?
No, for us, we were not surprised, except in that statement I made, I was just informing the Zambian people that the confusion that you are seeing is because there are more within. There are these European aligned individuals or these surrogates of UPND who are in this particular alliance to cause confusion. That's all I was trying to inform the Zambian people. I was not surprised about it because obviously in politics, you expect that those that are in government would try to ensure that they create confusion in the political parties that are in place. And we saw it even in PF. Recall PF, when PF was a very strong political party in 2010, confusion was created to have rebels in PF at councillor level, at the parliamentary level. There was that confusion which was created by MMD deliberately to weaken PF, which was a major opposition party. So when we moved in to salvage the situation, we understood the circumstances, but we managed to navigate our way until we managed to have Mr. Sata elected as president of the Republic of Zambia, overwhelmingly. Okay, so for me, it was not a surprise because I've seen it before. And also, you must understand that I've been in this arrangement for a long time. Even in 1991, when I was in the National Democratic Alliance, NADA, we had a situation where some members of NADA were sponsored by UNIP to cause confusion. They were given materials, they were given vehicles, they were given all sorts of things. It took myself and my late friend John Saklanda to hold a press briefing when we managed to get wind of the situation, to hold a press briefing to announce to the Zambian people that amongst our political party leadership, some have been bought by UNIP. And these are the vehicle registration numbers. We directed the police to arrest the culprits, and we also asked the police to impound those vehicles and grab the monies which were given to those individuals, if any. So for me, I know that there can be confusion which can be created by party in government, because I saw it in 1991, I saw it in 2010, and it cannot be strange if this happened. But to talk about it does not mean that that is a surprise. It is just informing the Zambian people the way we informed them in 1991, the way we informed them in 2020, in 2010, 2011 for that election, and to inform them that as we are going ahead, this is what has happened. Our colleagues there are not with the Zambian people who want to see how the cost of living is going to be reduced, who want to see how load shedding is going to be a thing of the past, who want to see how the fuel is going to come down. There are these issues which people are crying about, but there are camp that the message that this UKA you are seeing is not there to help you at all. These guys there are there just to serve their personal interests. And the people must know, because I mean, they should not blindly support a particular organization. They must do it with the informed, what we call informed consent. And if they have information and they misuse that information, it's up to them. But tell them this is the situation. So really, what I'm trying to say here is that I am not surprised. I've seen it before, and I've seen it now. And going forward, our people must be prepared that this is the direction we're going.
You have claimed that they're surrogates in the United Kwacha Alliance and surrogates of the United Party for National Development. But you've claimed several times yourself that you have intelligence information on what's going on in the country, what's going on within the United Party for National Development. Why then do you doubt that the UPND has intelligence information that can inform them of what's going on in the United Kwacha Alliance, just simply having good intelligence information?
No, it's not that I doubt that the UPND as a party in government can, obviously they have intelligence systems intended to ensure that they are able to get to know what their opposition is doing. And it's good practice for political parties to have intelligence. Like I said earlier, I saw it happen in 1991. The information we got that amongst us in NADA, some people were bought by UNIP. Okay, we got it through intelligence. Okay, the intelligence team told us this is the situation, and we managed to prove the nation that this is correct. Of course, also in 2010, we knew that the confusion was being created by MMD in PF, and we were able to align our program and came up with a different strategy for the election of 2011 through the People's Pact, and we were able to achieve. So even UPND, after having won this election, they cannot sit idle and expect to win the election in 2026 without intelligence to inform them what the opposition is doing or what their allies are doing. So it's very clear that this is happening, and we're not surprised it's happening this way. But the people must be informed that amongst us, there are these when Judas Iscariot. Even Jesus, he knew that amongst his own disciples, one of them was going to be a sellout. And he informed even his disciples that amongst you, one of you will sell me. But he didn't chase away that person. And it happened, it came to happen. But because others were already also informed that they'll be sellout amongst ourselves, it was easier now for them to plan properly how they would handle issues. Okay, so even for us, it's important that now that we know that within the UCA, nothing is going to happen because the majority are surrogates. That keeps us in a situation where now we have come up with this People's Pact agenda. Our other colleagues are also trying to use the Tonse Alliance, and at some point there will be a convergence zone where we'll have our candidate winning. So we are happy for ourselves as the People's Pact. We are happy that Tonse is emerging because anything can happen to either party. So the best is to either alliance along the way. So the best is to have a double-pronged approach. They will go in one direction, we'll go in another direction, but at the end of the day, we'll converge on election day on the candidate who we are going to sponsor as our presidential candidate. So it's important to have intelligence to do what is happening. It's good for what UPND is doing to try and understand what's happening in the opposition. Even us, we are also doing the same. We are pushing our intelligence to inform us what is happening in UPND to prepare for the election, because we need to have adequate information about our opponents before we go for those elections in 2026.
You attribute this failure to the United Party for National Development, who are, again, not a part of the alliance. But the man that you claim to speak for, President Edgar Lungu, is still sitting comfortably in the United Kwacha Alliance, and yet you're saying that this is a UPND formation, but the man that you campaign for is still sitting in the United Kwacha Alliance.
Yes, which is also another good move. You see, President Edgar Lungu indicated to us, not today, not yesterday, some time back, that look, he doesn't want to be seen to be the person who is going to destroy UCA. And as a president, former president, his role must be to unify the people of Zambia at large, but more importantly, the opposition, unify. And his role has been to try and unify the opposition. I've told you, he sent emissaries to come and speak to me, to ask me to join the alliance, despite having been informed that I had issues on the illegality of UCA, despite having been informed that I had issues on how UCA was going to field a candidate when it was in that particular mode of not being registered. He still sent emissaries to me to ask me to go and join UCA, and I tried to join UCA, but there was an animosity on the other side. There was a lot of aggression on the other side for me to join, and I walked away and started running our our People's Party. So the President Edgar Lungu, yes, is there in Uka because he doesn't want to be seen to be the person who has caused a problem for Uka. And Uka on its own will crumble because of its own fundamental problems that it is entrenched in. So at an appropriate time, when Uka has crumbled, President Edgar Lungu will find space elsewhere. But otherwise, you don't lay your eggs in one basket. And he knows that.
So let me get you right. You are telling me and the country here that the United Kwacha Alliance is just a pageant, and ECL is just one of the models catwalking for the audience and entertaining the Zambian audience.
No, what I'm telling you is that within UKA, they were people who were convinced that that was going to be a vehicle for change in 2026. They were disillusioned because when they went in, they found that there was a fundamental problem. You heard what has happened to President Apostle Pule, what has happened to President Sean Tembo. Their parties are no longer there. You know what has happened to New Era Democratic Party. Everyone who had a view that winning the election in 2026 required a leader who is popular and has numbers. And ECL, among all opposition political parties at the moment, is the only one who has those numbers. Those people became enemy of the other camp. You understand? And they made sure that those people are hounded out. So ECL is not catwalking there. ECL is there, obviously, to see how he can pacify the situation. And you heard from the narration of Honorable Monusa how hard he tried to convince the other guys not to proceed with the action that they were talking about. And he tried that to the extent where, according to Honorable Musa, was about to cry because he couldn't understand why people could be so adamant on using very illegal procedures, very undemocratic procedures to try and hound their friends out. You see, he was trying hard, meaning that he's putting in a lot of energy to try and unify the people. So he's not working there. But from within that group, there is already this sponsored group, the surrogates, who don't care what advice they'll get from anyone, provided they're going to advance their agenda, which is not what is in the best interest of the people, but in the best interest of UPND. So that is the position.
But you yourself are being accused of being a surrogate of ECL. You are allegedly being paid to scandalize the United Kwacha Alliance because some are opposed to ECL's candidature, making you no different from the things you are accusing, because you stand so strong on this position because apparently you've been paid a buck to scandalize the United Kwacha Alliance, destroy it, simply because they are not agreeable to ECL being the candidate at this time.
Well, not for us, like I said earlier, we have the People's Pact. And the People's Pact already made a decision to endorse President Edgar Lungu. And the reasons are very simple. Elections are about numbers. Elections are not about grandstanding, but about numbers. And he who has the majority of numbers is the one who takes office, either as councillor, as MP, or as president, or as mayor. Okay? So when we look at all opposition political leaders at the moment, none has the numbers that are closer to 2.8 million, which was the winning mark for the current president. Because for you to win an election, your starting point in terms of planning must be bringing 2.8 million people minimum on your side. So when you look at all of them, none has that. But for present ECL, amongst all opposition leaders, has a record of 1.8 million. So the struggle now is to build up on that 1.8 million to make it to 2.8 or even 3 million. You understand? It will be easier to use ACL because you have somewhere to start from, which is 1.8. Not anyone else who are going to start from 0. And for us, we said, we think this is the correct position. Numbers, and numbers don't lie. Okay, numbers don't lie. So our pushing even that agenda when we were invited to be part of UCA, our agenda was that we must find a candidate who must have numbers closer to 2.8 million or above. And there is none. The only one who has the numbers is ECL, which is standing at 1.8 million. So how do we build? So for us, we think it will be an easier journey to build from 1.8 going forward and then from 0. So this has been our thinking, okay? This is our thinking. And I can't see any logic in anyone wanting to oppose that. Then the second strength which ACL has is that, you see, elections, besides the numbers, there is also comparison. Okay, what have you done in your life, generally, and in presidency? So if you look at ACL, he has a lot to show for his presidency. He will tell you that when I was elected as president, I found electricity generation, for example, at 1.8 megawatts. But in my presidency, I raised it to this level because I had to organize money for fuel. I had to allow to invest here and there. He can give numbers and show you saunter. He will saunter this out of that. He will tell you that, look, when I was president, I was able to keep a stock of maize at any given time at 2.5 million tons in stock. And even when I was leaving office in September of 2021, I left 2.5 million tons of maize in stock. These colleagues of mine have nothing to show because what did they do? You are now in deficit. You are now importing maize, and this is so much money you're wasting. So he has a lot of things to say. He will tell you, when I became president, there were only 2 or 3 public universities. But today, in my presidency, I built 2 universities in Chinga. I did ABC. So he will have things to point at. Hospitals, he will tell you, I built these big hospitals. Built so and this, it will be easier to sell Edgar Chagwa because he will have things to point at a lot in terms of economy, in terms of social development, and in terms of generally the governance issues.
You once told me that you don't believe in candidates perpetually standing to be president. So how come you now believe in someone who was actually voted out of office, and resoundingly so, by the people of Zambia?
Well, in that instance, we're talking about the 2 terms, okay, as provided for in the Constitution. Okay, for Edgar Chagwa, I don't think it would be appropriate to say he wants to stand in perpetuity. As far as the Constitution is concerned at this point in time, he has not done the 2 terms. According to the ruling or the decision of the Constitutional Court, in 4 cases that have been heard, he is eligible to stand. So that's not the kind of person I'm talking about. Otherwise, if contesting is an issue, I would have a problem with the present HH, who has stood how many times? Several times but he is still eligible to even contest in 2026. So here, the issue is we've got ECL, who, according to the Constitution, at the moment as it is provided for, and the decision of the Constitutional Court, is eligible to contest, but he has a better profile compared to any other opposition leader at the moment, which would be a very good profile to use in a particular election, especially now that the people of Zambia are demanding that there must be unity of purpose into the election of 2026. The church is saying, can you opposition unite? The people on the ground are saying, can you unite? Because they know go separate ways, you will lose. And the people are determined to remove UPND from government because they think that they were shortchanged, that the stories which were told to them, the promises which were given to them, have not been fulfilled. And they know that the way UPND is running now, and looking at the numbers which they amassed last time, 2.8 million votes, the people think that if parties are going to run independently, you will not manage to reach that threshold. So really, for me to support ECL, it's not that maybe I support perpetual running for elections. No. What I don't subscribe to is anyone who would want to go for third term or terms beyond what is prescribed in the Constitution. And for now, our candidate, ECL, does not have that kind of record of wanting to stand beyond what the Constitution provides, but within the confines of the Constitution, as is provided for by the Constitution and has been determined in 4 occasions by the Constitutional Court.
Now, just to add a bit of context to what you said, when you spoke with me a few years ago, you were talking about yourself and you were talking about your personal values as to why you wouldn't want to contest any more elections. You said you didn't see it fit to keep seeking the people's mandate, the people's votes, when they reject you. Which is why I'm asking, what has changed? Because President ECL was in fact rejected, voted out by the people of this country, and today you support him to go back where he was rejected.
Well, at that time, I'd contested in 2 elections and lost. ECL has contested in 1 election where he has lost. So there's a big difference. Him, it is once that is not he succeeded. Me, it was twice, and I didn't think that it was going to add value to continue contesting and losing, as it were. So if he loses this particular time, he will be like me. We will have the same record, having lost twice, but it will be better because out of those 2, he won a by-election and he won one full election, 4-term election. So you will still have a better credential on head-to-head, but in terms of having lost elections, at the he has a better record because he has only lost 1 compared to me who lost 2. So I think my argument still remains as valid that time as it is now.
Mr. Sinkamba, thank you so much for making time to join me on this edition of This Day.
Thank you, my brother, Mr. Bioya, or Dingy, that they always want to call you. And it was a pleasure speaking to you on this program today.